When I found the HOA security car blocking my driveway over fake violation claims, I never expected to discover the explosive secret that would bring down their entire corrupt empire. What would you do if you suddenly held the legal power to dissolve the very HOA that's making your life miserable? Comment below where you're watching from. I was already running late for my big presentation when I saw it, that white security car, with Sunrise Valley HOA painted on the side, parked right across my driveway. My blood pressure shot up instantly. This wasn't the first time, but today was different. I had 20 minutes to make it downtown, and my boss had made it crystal clear: be there or kiss the promotion goodbye. Patricia Thompson sat in the driver's seat tapping away at her phone, pretending not to notice me standing there in my best suit. She'd only been on the HOA board for 3 months, but somehow she'd managed to make everyone's life miserable. I took a deep breath and knocked on her window. Oh, she jumped, acting surprised to see me. Is there a problem? Her fake smile made my skin crawl. Yes, there's a problem. You're blocking my driveway, and I need to get to work. I tried, keeping my voice steady, professional. Patricia's smile didn't waver as she flipped through a stack of papers on her clipboard. According to our records, you have 3 violations that need immediate attention. Your holiday decorations weren't removed by the January 15th deadline. Your garbage bins were visible from the street last Tuesday, and she paused for dramatic effect. Your grass is 2 in above regulation height. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Patricia, I don't have any holiday decorations up. Those are Sarah's lights next door. My garbage bins are in the garage, and I mowed 3 days ago. Well, someone filed complaints, and as HOA security I need to investigate. She glanced at her watch. The board meeting is next Wednesday at 7:00 p.m. You can dispute these violations. Then my phone buzzed, a text from my boss asking where I was. This couldn't be happening. Patricia, please, I have an important meeting. You can't just block people in their driveways. Actually, according to HOA bylaw section 7.3, security has full authority to restrict access during violation investigations. She didn't even look up from her phone. That's when I noticed something odd. The security vehicle was just her personal car with a magnetic sign slapped on the side. I pulled out my phone and started recording. So you're telling me you're officially here as HOA security? I asked, making sure to get her car in the frame. Of course. She sat up straighter, clearly enjoying her perceived power. The board appointed me head of security last week. Interesting. I kept recording. And you have proper licensing and insurance for that? Her smile faltered for just a second. That's confidential HOA information. Really? Because I'm pretty sure impersonating security personnel is illegal in this state. I wasn't entirely certain about that, but the way her face twitched told me I'd hit a nerve. Are you threatening me? Patricia's voice rose an octave. I'll have you know my husband is very good friends with Captain Rogers at the police department. I checked my watch. 15 minutes until my presentation. Patricia, move your car now, or I'm calling the actual police to report you for false imprisonment. That's what it's called when you deliberately trap someone in their property. She sputtered for a moment, then threw her car into drive. This isn't over the board. We'll hear about your aggressive behavior. As I backed out of my driveway, I caught a glimpse of Patricia furiously typing on her phone. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. How did one person get so much power so quickly? Why was she targeting specific neighbors? And most importantly, what would I find if I started digging into our HOA records? I made it to my presentation with 2 minutes to spare, but my mind kept wandering back to that confrontation. Patricia had mentioned something about HOA bylaws, and I had a feeling she was bluffing. That evening I'd start researching exactly what powers our HOA actually had, but I never expected the bombshell I was about to uncover, one that would change everything about our quiet little neighborhood. My hands were shaking as I clicked through the county records website. What started as a simple search about CHI bylaws turned into a night deep dive that would change everything. The bright screen lit up my dark home office while thunder rolled outside, matching my growing excitement as pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Our HOA's incorporation had expired 5 years ago when the previous board forgot to file renewal paperwork. Every fine, every rule, every threat they'd made since then was technically illegal. I grabbed my phone to tell everyone, but stopped myself. Patricia and her minions would destroy the evidence if they knew I was on to them. I needed to be smart about this. A notification popped up on my phone, another violation notice from Patricia. This time she claimed my recycling bin was visible from the street at 6:03 p.m., 3 whole minutes past the allowed time. The $150 fine made my blood boil, but I smiled knowing what I now knew. Just then my doorbell rang, making me jump. It was nearly midnight. Who could be here this late? Through my security camera, I saw my neighbor Tom hunched over in his wheelchair, soaking wet from the rain. I rushed to let him in. I'm sorry to bother you so late, Tom said, water dripping from his gray hair, but I didn't know where else to turn. He handed me a stack of papers, his hands trembling. They're finding me $500 for my grass being too tall. I've been in the hospital for 3 weeks after my surgery. My lawn service couldn't get in because Patricia's security car kept blocking my driveway. I helped Tom dry off and made him some tea while he showed me 5 separate violation notices, all issued while he was in the hospital. The latest one threatened to put a lien on his house. Tom had lived here for 30 years, long before the HOA even existed. Seeing this decorated veteran brought to tears by Patricia's bullying made something snap inside me. Tom, what if I told you I found something that could stop all this? I pulled up the county records on my laptop. As I explained what I discovered, Tom's eyes grew wide. But there was more. While helping Tom research his property lines for the grass violation appeal, we stumbled upon something huge. The original HOA boundaries, filed in 1995, didn't actually include his property or 5 others on our street. Patricia was enforcing rules on homes that weren't even part of the association. The next morning I called in sick to work. This was too important. I drove to the county records office. The moment it opened, the clerk, an older woman named Betty, could tell I meant business. She helped me pull every document related to our HOAs formation, property lines, and incorporation history. "Oh honey," Betty said, adjusting her glasses as she looked at the maps, "these boundaries are all wrong. See this notary stamp? It's not even a real notary number." She pulled out more files, and we discovered the original HOA paperwork had other problems too: signatures that didn't match, dates that conflicted, permits that were never properly filed. My phone buzzed again. Patricia was calling, probably to harass me about another made-up violation. I declined the call and focused on the documents Betty helped me make certified copies of everything. As I was leaving, she touched my arm. "Be careful, dear," she warned. "I've seen HOA do crazy things when their power is threatened. Document everything, set up cameras, and whatever you do, don't let them know what you know until you have all your ducks in a row." On my way home, I noticed Patricia's security car following me. Instead of turning into my driveway, I drove straight to the local police station. Just as I suspected, the car quickly turned around. I filed a harassment report with the police, showing them videos from my doorbell camera of Patricia's security guards blocking my driveway and taking photos of my house at night. The officer looked troubled. "These security guards," he said, "do they have proper licensing? Because I don't see their company registered with the state." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This wasn't just about expired incorporation anymore. This was about an HOA board drunk on power, breaking multiple laws while pretending to enforce them. Back home, I found 3 more violation notices stuffed in my mailbox, but now they just made me smile. In my home office, I created a secure folder on my computer and started documenting everything: property maps, violation notices, videos, photos, financial records, anything I could find. I wouldn't show my hand yet, but when I did, Patricia would never know what hit her. A knock at my door interrupted my work. It was Maria from across the street, tears streaming down her face. "They're making me take down the garden I planted for my late husband," she sobbed. "Patricia says it's not approved landscaping." I invited her in. My heart racing. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, this was for everyone. I looked at my growing pile of evidence and realized this was just the beginning. How many other neighbors were suffering in silence? How deep did Patricia's corruption go? And most importantly, how many others would join me in bringing it all crashing down? My heart was pounding as I watched 20 of my neighbors quietly slip into my garage that Tuesday evening. Each face showed the same mix of fear and anger I'd been carrying since finding that paper trail. Tom wheeled himself to the front, his hospital bracelet still on his wrist, while Maria clutched a box full of warning letters about her garden gnomes. What started as my private battle against Patricia was about to become something much bigger. Last week, they threatened to put a lien on my house. Mrs. Robinson whispered, her hands shaking as she held up a stack of violation notices, all because my son installed a wheelchair ramp after my hip surgery. Her voice cracked, and Sarah from next door put an arm around her shoulders. I felt my blood boil. This was the same woman who'd baked cookies for every new family that moved in for the past 30 years. Jeff, the high school art teacher who lived on Oak Street, spread out photos of his house on my workbench. "They're demanding I repaint my entire house because the white I used is apparently cream cloud instead of morning frost," he said, rolling his eyes. "The colors look identical. The paint job cost me my entire summer savings." As more stories poured out, I carefully documented everything on my laptop: times, dates, photos, copies of ridiculous violation notices. Our case was growing stronger by the minute, but then came the knock at the garage door that made everyone freeze. "Security check." Patricia's voice rang out through the garage windows. I could see her HOA patrol car's lights flashing. My neighbors quickly ducked behind my shelves and workbench while Tom's wife quietly pushed his wheelchair into a dark corner. I opened the door just enough to block the view inside. "Can I help you, Patricia?" I kept my voice steady, though my heart was racing. She thrust her iPad in my face, showing a grainy security camera feed. "We've received reports of suspicious gatherings at your property. Care to explain why cars keep appearing in your driveway way after hours?" I smiled calmly. I wasn't aware the HOA monitored private driveways or restricted when homeowners could have visitors. "Could you point out where that's written in our bylaws?" Her Face Renee as head of security. I have every right to violate privacy laws, I interrupted smoothly. Interesting, I'm sure the county would love to hear about unauthorized surveillance of private property. Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits. Watch yourself, things have a way of happening to troublemakers in this neighborhood. She spun on her heel and stormed back to her car, but not before I snapped a quick photo of her license plate with my phone. Once she left, everyone emerged from hiding looking shaken, but more determined than ever. Did she just threaten you, Maria asked, her garden gnome clutched protectively to her chest. She did, I replied, and that's going right into our documentation. I turned to address the group. Listen, what I'm about to tell you needs to stay in this room. I've discovered something about our HOA's legal status that changes everything for the next hour. We organized into teams. Sarah, who worked as a Pargal volunteer to help research property laws, Tom's wife, a former accountant, offered to analyze the HOA's financial records. We created a private Facebook group under the innocent name Sunrise Valley Recipe Exchange to communicate safely. Just as we were wrapping up, Linda, Patricia's assistant from the HOA office, slipped in through the side door. Everyone tensed, but her face told us she wasn't here to spy. I've been keeping quiet for months, she said, her voice trembling, but after seeing Mrs. Robinson crying at the office today about that ramp, I can't anymore. There's something you all need to see about where the fines money is really going. Before she could pull out the papers from her bag, headlights swept across the garage door. 2 HOA patrol cars rolled by slowly, their spotlights scanning our properties. Linda quickly stuffed the papers back in her purse. Tomorrow, she whispered, meet me behind the community center at noon. I'll show you everything. As my neighbors crept home in small groups to avoid suspicion, I couldn't shake Patricia's threat from my mind. I checked my security cameras and locked every door. Just before midnight, a notification pinged on my phone. Motion detected in my front yard. The security feed showed a dark figure near my prized oak tree, something glinting in their hand. I reached for my phone to call the police, but then the screen went black. Someone had cut the power to my house. My hands shook as I pulled out the thick folder of legal documents and slapped them onto Patricia's desk. Her face turned white as the ghost when I showed her the proof that our HOA wasn't even real anymore. But what happened next made my blood run cold. Instead of admitting defeat, her eyes got this scary look that reminded me of a cornered wild animal. The very next morning, I woke up to find bright orange violation notices plastered all over my front door. My unapproved mailbox color needed to be changed within 24 hours. My non-regulation welcome mat was suddenly against the rules. Even the bird feeder my daughter made in school got a citation for attracting unauthorized wildlife. I tried staying calm and filmed everything on my phone, but Patricia was always one step ahead. She started sending her security buddy Brad to park outside my house at night, claiming they'd gotten anonymous tips about suspicious activity. The security car's headlights would shine right into my bedroom window until 3 a.m., and somehow only my house needed this special attention. Things got worse when my neighbors started getting scared to talk to me. Sarah, who had been bringing me coffee every morning for years, started crossing the street when she saw me coming. Tom would only text me after dark saying Patricia had threatened to audit everyone who associated with problem residents. I wasn't about to give up though. I spent my lunch breaks at the county records office digging through property maps and old HOA documents. The clerk there, Betty, started saving files for me when she saw how often I was coming in. You wouldn't believe how many people just roll over and take it, she told me one day. But Patricia had friends in high places. My approved house paint suddenly became unauthorized. The garden I'd maintained for 10 years was now violating some rule she'd made up last Tuesday. Every morning brought new fines, each more ridiculous than the last. The real punch to the gut came when I pulled into my driveway after a long day at work. The massive oak tree my dad had planted when I was born, the one I'd climbed as a kid and later built my daughter's treehouse in, was lying on its side, cut clean through at the base. A neon orange notice fluttered in the breeze: emergency removal of unauthorized landscaping elements. I dropped to my knees next to the fallen tree, touching the fresh sawdust with trembling fingers. My daughter's treehouse was smashed to pieces. The family photos we'd kept up there scattered across the lawn. Through my tears, I spotted Patricia watching from her front porch, sipping her coffee with that smug little smile. That tree had been my dad's last gift to me. Before cancer took him, every spring he'd help me hang my mom's old wind chimes from its strongest branch, telling me stories about their life together. Now those wind chimes lay such bed in the grass, and Patricia's smile told me this was exactly the reaction she'd wanted. But she didn't know what I discovered that very morning at the county office. Hidden in the back of a dusty file cabinet, Betty had found something that would wipe that smile right off Patricia's face: documents showing the HOA had been taking kickbacks from their preferred contractors for years. Every emergency tree removal, every mandatory house painting, every required renovation had been padding someone's pocket. I stood up slowly, brushed off my knees, and took out my phone as I carefully photographed everything: the tree, the broken treasures, the notice, and yes, Patricia's smirking face. I remembered something my dad always used to say: sometimes you have to lose something precious to find out who your real enemies are. I sent the Photos to my lawyer with shaking hands. Tomorrow's HOA meeting was going to be very interesting indeed. My hands trembled as I walked into the emergency HOA meeting clutching a thick folder of evidence that would change everything. Patricia sat at the front table like a queen on her throne, her perfectly styled hair and designer blazer a stark contrast to the tired faces of my neighbors. The community center buzzed with whispers. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. I noticed Linda, Patricia's assistant, fidgeting nervously in the corner, constantly checking her phone. That was weird. She usually stuck to Patricia like glue. The room fell silent as Patricia banged her gavel, her red-painted nails wrapping around it like claws. We're here to address the growing problem of community troublemakers, she announced, staring directly at me. Some people simply don't understand the importance of maintaining standards. I stood up slowly, my voice steadier than I expected. Actually, Patricia, we're here to talk about standards. Your standards. I pulled out the first document, holding it up like the standard of having a legally valid HOA before enforcing rules. The color drained from Patricia's face, but she recovered quickly. How dare you question our authority? I've run 3 HOAs before this one, all of which mysteriously dissolved. I cut in, pulling out more papers. I did my homework. Patricia called every single one. Funny how they all had the same pattern of increasing fines, vanishing funds, and creative bookkeeping. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Robinson, our elderly neighbor who'd been forced to remove her medical ramp, leaned forward in her wheelchair. Tom and Sarah, my allies through this whole nightmare, started passing out copies of the documents I'd gathered. Patricia's perfectly composed mask started cracking. These are lies. Linda, bring me the financial records. Linda. But Linda wasn't moving. Instead, she stood up slowly, her voice shaking. I can't do this anymore, Patricia. She pulled out a USB drive. Not after what I found last night. The room went dead silent. Patricia's face turned from pale to bright red. Linda, sit down right now, or you're fired. You can't fire me, Linda said, growing braver, because I already quit, and I sent copies of everything to the state auditor office. She turned to face the crowd. The HOA accounts. Patricia's been in wrestling. Thousands, every fine, every fee, every special assessment. Half of it went straight into her personal accounts. The room exploded. Jeff jumped up, waving his violation notice about his unauthorized white paint. Is that why you made me repaint my house 3 times? Maria stood next, her voice breaking. My garden gnome, fines paid for your new Mercedes. I watched as Patricia's carefully built kingdom started crumbling around her, but then I noticed her reaching for her designer bag, and my heart stopped. What else did she have planned? She pulled out a stack of papers, slapping them on the table. If you think this is over, you're all dumber than I thought. I've got signed contracts with every major developer in the county. One word from me about community instability, and your property values will tank so hard you'll never recover. But I was ready for this too. I nodded to Tom, who switched on the projector. Up on the screen appeared emails between Patricia and the developers. Emails. Linda had helped us obtain emails showing Patricia had been threatening them too, promising to direct construction contracts their way in exchange for kickbacks. Patricia's face went from red to purple. She lunged for her bag again, but this time Linda was faster. Looking for this. Linda held up another USB drive, the original copies of everything. They're already with the FBI. I called them this morning. The room erupted in chaos again, but through it all I noticed something strange. Patricia wasn't looking at Linda or the screen or even me. She was staring at her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. Despite everything crashing down around her, she was smiling. What was she doing? What final card did she have left to play? As satisfying as this moment was, something told me this battle wasn't over yet. The meeting room erupted into chaos as Patricia lunged for the door, but Tom's tall frame blocked her escape. My heart pounded as I watched her wild eyes dart around the room like a trapped animal. She clutched her designer handbag so tight her knuckles turned white, probably filled with evidence she was desperate to destroy. Move out of my way, she shrieked at Tom, but he stood firm, arms crossed. The same strength that helped him through weeks of hospital recovery now radiated from him as he simply said no. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. Yes, we have evidence of major financial fraud at the Sunrise Valley HOA office. Linda, Patricia's assistant, stood beside me, clutching years of printed bank statements showing mysterious transfers to offshore accounts. Sarah, my Christmas lights-loving neighbor, had already started live streaming everything on her phone. The look of pure panic on Patricia's face when she noticed the red recording light was almost worth all those months of harassment. Almost through the windows I could see other neighbors gathering outside, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Robinson had rolled up in her wheelchair, the same one Patricia had tried to find her for installing a ramp for. She was holding up her own phone, recording everything. You don't understand. Patricia's voice suddenly changed, becoming sugary sweet. This is all just a big misunderstanding. I can explain everything. She tried to smile, but it looked more like a grimace. Why don't we discuss this privately? I'm sure we can work something out. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was the same tone she'd used right before having my father's Oak tree cut down, the time for private discussions is over, I replied, my voice firm. The police can handle it from here. As if on cue, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. 2 police cars pulled up outside, and Patricia's fake smile crumbled. She made one last desperate attempt to push past Tom, but he didn't budge. Officer Martinez, who had taken my complaint about the tree, walked in with his partner Patricia Thompson. Officer Martinez asked, though he clearly recognized her from all our previous calls about her harassment, we're going to need you to come with us. What happened next seemed to move in slow motion. Patricia's designer bag slipped from her grasp, spilling papers everywhere. As she scrambled to gather them, I caught glimpses of documents with offshore bank names, printed emails about creative accounting, and a list of all the illegal fines she'd collected. Ed, if I'm going down, she suddenly screamed, her comm mask completely shattered. I'm taking everyone's property values with me. She pulled out her phone and started typing frantically. One press of this button, and I'll post every dirty secret about this neighborhood on social media. Every violation, every fine, every piece of dirt I've collected. Your precious home values will plummet. The room went quiet. I could feel the fear from my neighbors, fear of losing their biggest investment, their home's worth. This was Patricia's last power play, using our own worries against us. For a moment I saw doubt creep into Tom's eyes. Saw Sarah lower her phone slightly, but then Mrs. Robinson wheeled forward. Go ahead, she said clearly, post whatever you want. I'd rather have a neighborhood where people help each other than one ruled by fear. One by one other neighbors nodded in agreement. Maria stepped forward with her phone, showing a website she'd created documenting all of Patricia's abuses. Jeff joined her, holding up papers showing how our property values had actually decreased under Patricia's reign of terror as the police led Patricia away in handcuffs. She was still yelling threats, but they sounded hollow now. Powerless through the window, I watched her being escorted to the police car, her perfect hair now a mess, her expensive suit wrinkled. The neighbors gathered outside, parted like the Red Sea. As she passed, nobody spoke, nobody jeered. Our silence was more powerful than any words. As the police car drove away, I noticed something remarkable. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months were now talking, sharing stories, finally free from the fear that had kept them isolated. But my attention was drawn to a small paper that had fallen from Patricia's bag during the chaos. As I picked it up, my blood ran cold. It was a contract with a developer dated for next week. She hadn't just been stealing our money, she'd been planning to sell out our entire neighborhood for a massive shopping complex. The final betrayal that would never happen. Now, the morning after Patricia's arrest, our neighborhood woke up to find bright orange violation stickers plastered across every single mailbox. Her last desperate act of revenge before being taken away. But this time, instead of fear, the sight made my neighbors laugh. We gathered on my front lawn, peeling off those stickers together, while sharing stories of her ridiculous rules over coffee and donuts. I pulled out the thick folder of documents I'd collected and spread them across my patio table. Look at this, I said, showing everyone the official state records. Our HOA hasn't been legal for 5 whole years. Every fine they collected was against the law. The gasps turned to cheers as I explained how we could get our money back. Tom, still using his cane from his hospital stay, pointed at the financial records. Linda had helped us uncover. Patricia didn't just take our fines, he said, shaking his head. She used our HOA fees to pay for her own house repairs and fancy vacations. Sarah, whose holiday lights had started this whole thing, was already making phone calls to help other neighborhoods check their HOA papers too. But our victory party got cut short when 3 black SUVs pulled up, outed Patricia's daughter Jennifer with a team of expensive-looking lawyers. My mother built this community, she announced, waving some papers, and I'm taking over as the new HOA president. I couldn't help but smile. Actually, I said, pulling out my laptop, I've been recording everything. The local news van I'd called earlier turned the corner right on time, and I think our whole city needs to hear this story. Jennifer's face turned as white as her mother's had. The reporters loved it. Corrupt HOA president arrested, neighborhood discovers 5-year secret. Made the evening news. My phone started ringing non-stop with calls from other neighborhoods dealing with similar problems. We weren't alone. We held a big community meeting in my backyard that weekend, not the strict, boring kind Patricia used to run, but one with kids playing, dogs running around, and real conversations happening. Mrs. Robinson finally got to keep her medical ramp. Maria's garden gnomes multiplied overnight. Jeff repainted his house the exact shade of white he wanted. The best part, we started a new group, grew not an HOA, but a real neighborhood association where helping each other was the only rule. When Tom needed his lawn mowed during recovery, 5 families showed up with mowers. When Sarah's daughter was selling Girl Scout cookies, we all bought extra boxes. My new oak sapling grew stronger each day, surrounded by happy neighbors who actually cared. Some people worried our property values would drop without an HOA. But guess what, they went up instead. Turns out having neighbors who look out for each other is worth more than any rulebook. Other communities started calling us for advice on breaking free from their own HOAs, and Patricia, well, the court ordered her to pay back every illegal fine plus interest. She tried moving to that fancy retirement community she'd bragged about, but they'd seen her on the news and Rejected her application last I heard she had to move in with Jennifer, who now has to follow someone else's rules for a change. The orange violation stickers became our neighborhood's inside joke. We framed one in our new community center, a reminder that standing up to bullies might be scary, but doing it together makes us stronger. Sometimes the SCA Riest rules are the ones we let other people make up for us. As I sit on my porch watching the sunset, my oak saplings stretching toward the sky, I can't help but smile at the kids playing freely in their front yards and neighbors chatting over fence lines. We didn't just take down a corrupt HOA, we built something better, a real community where kindness beats control every single time. And those security cameras Patricia installed everywhere, we kept them up not to catch violations but to record all the good things that happen when neighbors become friends. Turns out the best security isn't about catching people doing things wrong, it's about helping people do things right.